I'm Christine. Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, where I empower you to develop sustainable habits, challenge society, and take messy action. It's time to align with the universe for the full human experience and redefine what it really means to be successful.
It's too good, the secret is out and wow.
Welcome to the Recovering Perfectionist Podcast, this season in partnership with Dance Wellness Community. So this season, every episode, I'm going to be introducing you to a new practitioner that is a part of the Dance Wellness Community. I am so excited for you guys to meet these amazing experts in their field. Today, we have an incredible person. Her name is Ricci-Lee, and welcome, Ricci.
Hey, Christine, I'm so happy to be here, and I'm so excited to be a part of the Dance Wellness community and to chat with you today.
Yay, this is going to be so good. I cannot wait for you guys to hear what Ricci does. This is just awesome, and I'm so excited to have you a part of both the podcast and the wellness community. So we're going to get started with the easy questions so you guys know exactly what she does, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it. So Ricci, what do you specialize in?
So I am a registered dietitian. So I am a nutrition professional. I specialize in a whole range of things, from working with individuals with weight management to dance sport performance, making sure you perform your best on the dance floor, to eating disorders, as well as GI challenges and struggles. So basically looking at those nutrition needs and support to make sure that you're going to perform your best based on the fuel that you're putting in your body and your mindset around food.
Love that. Love that. Love that. The gut is the second brain, as they say. So it's very important.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
How long have you been doing this and coaching clients?
So I have been a dietitian since 2016. So quite a while, about 8 years.
Wow.
And then I started my private practice about 7 years ago. So I have been working with clients for quite a long time.
Very cool. And who do you help? Who's your specific target client?
So I have a couple different targets, especially with our discussions today. Dancers in the dance sport world is a big area for me as a professional dancer as well, and dance instructor. Being able to work with dancers, pro-am, pro, amateurs, all of those different dancers, to be able to find that proper nutrition to fuel their dancing and feel their best in their body is a big target area for me.
Perfect. Love that. Well, let's get into it. As you know, if you guys have listened to the first episode of this season, the Dance Wellness Community is here to create tools and resources for professional athletes, specifically dancers, to have be able to create a sustainable lifestyle as a dancer in so many different areas. Ricci was the first person that I actually reached out to as a practitioner, which makes this really special. And I'm super glad she's the first one to be able to chat with us today. Explain to us a little bit why it is so important for specifically high-level athletes and dancers to have these types of resources.
So with being at a high level of performance, even at a low level of performance, anything that you're really committed to in terms of athletics or physical pressure on your body, training, getting into this place where we're trying to perform at this high optimal level, we need to make sure our body and our mind is supported. So if we are just training in our one area, we're not balanced and eventually we're going to burn out. So being able to have the proper nutrition, for example, on my end, to be able to fuel your body in a way you need to support that performance, being able to work on a mental level, to be able to find the balance between the stress and the mindset, as well as being able to support potential injury and performance challenges on a medical level. All of those things are so important to be able to produce longevity as an athlete, as a high level performer.
Absolutely. Yeah, you definitely got to be able to put in the right things to be able to get out what you're looking for.
Mhm.
So that being said, I remember when we were younger, I'm gonna age myself a little bit. I'm a proud millennial, but we were
Yep.
told that, drink milk, it's gonna make your bones strong. We knew what the
Mhm.
food pyramid was. It was a lot, we
Mhm.
didn't have a lot of gluten-free, dairy-free people living, it wasn't a big thing. Now everything has become this whole thing. A lot of it's trendy, a lot of it's real. How do
Mhm.
you differentiate? I mean, I feel like things are changing on the daily as far as what is recommended for us to not just eat every day, but
Mhm.
like the amount of calories. Obviously, everybody is different. I know you're very
Mhm.
customizable in your programs, which is kind of necessary in this field.
Yes.
But how do you keep up with, or do you not even listen to that,
Mhm.
noise out there and you just kind of go with your gut, pun intended, um, to help your clients figure
Mhm.
out exactly what it is that they need?
So it's a tricky world, and a lot of the time, my clients are constantly coming to me with, well, I heard this, or I read this, or I saw this research study. And it's really hard to pick through because the world of the internet right now, you have access to all information at all
Yes.
levels of quality. And through my schooling personally, part of one of our focuses was to look at research, to look at what information is being put out and being able to interpret the quality of the research. And that
Mm,
was something that I found really important because a research study doesn't mean that the results are
right.
good
Totally.
or trustworthy. It's very easy to extrapolate that one tiny piece of data that supports what you want it to say and
Hmm.
conclude that. So, and a lot of these studies that are out there are not on large population bases. They take a handful of people and say, oh, look, we looked at 10 people and keto is
Right.
good, for example.
Right.
Um, and it's not that simple. And
Mm,
so I'm always keeping an eye on the research to see what's potentially changing, what's potentially shifting. If a client comes to me with a question about something, I'm always happy to look into it. I'm not going to say, nope, it's wrong, and not even look at it, because things can change. That's the world of
right.
research. That's the world of growing knowledge and information. So if, as a dancer, for example, we were to say, this way of doing rhythm is the way and that's how it should be from 20 years ago till now,
Right.
our dancing would not have progressed and developed. And same with nutrition. But
Good point.
with new, yeah, but there are the things we know that work. So there
Yes.
is a solid foundation. And that's what I always come back to. So that foundation, and I'll explain what that is always
Yeah.
my base. And then I look at these other areas of research to see, okay, well, maybe we can tweak this a little bit or that based on the new research for specific individuals.
Yeah.
So, what I see as a foundation in nutrition is balance, moderation, and incorporating all foods within that moderated way that you
Yeah.
enjoy and that you appreciate. So, variety. So, for me, I'm really looking to make sure we're fueling in a reasonable time frame. So, generally, as a baseline, and again, like you said, this can be individualized. So sometimes time frames are shorter, sometimes they're a little longer. But generally, I'm looking for people to have something to eat every 3 to 5 hours as a base. And so I'm not someone that's big on the like intermittent fasting concepts.
Mm.
Though those to
The big
me, while they're
meals, right? You want a lot of small meals throughout the day.
exactly. And so
Hmm.
for me, I like to balance, meal snack, or it kind of varies based on your waking hours, how long you're actually awake
Right.
during the day. But I've seen that tends to sustain people more effectively throughout the day. And then your
Interesting.
body kind of trusts, like, I know when I'm going to get food, I can use it efficiently and I can get rid of the extra. So
Good
that's
point.
kind of the baseline that I look at. And then I also look at balance within that, making sure we have a good balance of carbohydrates, good balance of protein, good balance of fat, and then vegetables where we can get them in are always a great thing to mix in and incorporate. So always having a balance. So if someone were to have a snack, for example, I would say don't just have an apple. Have an apple with a
Mm.
tablespoon of peanut butter. And that balance together is going to be more satiating and give you the right balance of energy that you're looking for the results that you're trying to achieve.
Yes, I noticed that when I was doing a lot of nutrition research for myself a few years back, that you're right.
Yeah.
It's I would go and I would eat like, a couple pieces of meat, right?
Hmm.
But then they were like, no, 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 if you pair it with this, it activates it in a different way, in which case,
Exactly.
right? Which is kind of interesting and I feel like a little synchronistic of like a partnership in dancing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you can't have just the guy and just the girl. Like you need them both to
exactly.
create that. So I think that apple and peanut butter or,
Hmm.
crackers and cheese kind of thing, it kind of
Exactly.
has that. I love it. Um, so you work with, as we said, high level athletes, professional dancers. They have these high goals, right? That was
Yep.
the whole point of this community as well that we wanted to create with the dance wellness community
Hmm.
is we talk a lot about us having incredible coaches to coach us
Hmm.
in our technique, in our musicality, in our choreography, what we should wear on the dance floor. We have incredible vendors, hair and
Hmm.
makeup. I mean, the top tier of all of these different things that we need to look our
Yeah.
best on the floor when it comes to the visual aspect. But we feel like over the years it's been lacking a little bit in the feeling
Hmm.
our best, especially because
Yes.
these athletes are grinding and, they're constantly on a plane,
Hmm.
jet lag. A lot of them are teaching as well as having a professional career, which are
Hmm.
basically two full-time jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there just aren't enough hours in the day for it all. So then, what tends to lack is the physical and the mental
Hmm.
self-care, essentially.
Exactly.
So what I was so that being said, how do you feel it's important to really support these athletes in what they need, specifically you in the physical aspect of what you
Hmm.
do nutritionally, as we discussed, your foundation, your base. When someone
Hmm.
comes into you, you're like, all right, let's, you kind of bring them through your natural checklist. But when they
Exactly.
have that, like when they come to you and they're like, I want to be a world champion, because you
Hmm.
have a lot of people in this industry that's their goal.
Yeah.
Do you work with their coaches as well? Do you work just with them? Do you work with partnerships?
Hmm. So that's a great question. I think it could be advantageous to work with their coaches as well, but at this point, working with both the individual and the partnership can be really helpful because as a partnership, nutrition wise, we can support each other. While we may
Mm,
have slightly different needs, if one of us is focusing on good nutrition and good fueling, and
yeah.
the other one's just like, let's push, let's train, let's go. And then they don't eat breakfast. And then
Yeah.
they,
They're surviving on
are
coffee.
exactly. And then they're snapping at their partner because they're hangry. And then the other
Right.
partner is like, I have energy now. And then this one only has energy later. Like
Yes.
using these things together as a partnership can be really good. Just like a lot of us at that high level will do like physical workouts together, we'll do all of those things
Right.
together.
Buddy system.
We exactly. It can help with accountability. It can help keeping us together and in sync to where we are both having the same goals, not just on the dance floor, but off the dance floor so that we create a cohesive picture.
I love that. What would you say is the most common thing that people are asking you to
Mm-hmm.
help them with?
So, in this specific realm, so for me, like I said, I also work a lot with eating disorders, weight management, all of that. And eating disorders is something I'm going to just put a little highlight over here because the dance world, we have coaches that tell us you're not the right size or judges that
Right.
say you need to be thinner or stronger or taller or longer and you need to look a certain way. That's aesthetics is part of this industry and that's
Right.
for better or for worse, it's part of it. And
Right.
so, that's something I do keep in mind as I work with people on understanding the value of what their body is providing them with, and then having that physical aesthetic come as a result to function, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So if I'm fueling my body in the right way, I'm doing the things I need to reach my goals, my body will do what it needs to do to look the way it needs to be. And that might not be the way that my competitor next to me looks. Like my competitor might be 5'9" and thin and lean and lines up to the ceiling. And I'm 5'2" and I'm a little bit curvier, but I'm toned and I'm strong and I'm fueled. And I'm providing a different quality on the floor.
Right.
So we're not all going to look the same. Ballroom dancing would be very boring if we all
True.
looked the same. And so knowing how to use your own structure and features to your strengths,
Yeah.
as well as, fueling your body for who you are. So appreciating the body that you have and making the best of it that you can healthfully. So if I have to starve myself to get to a goal, I'm going to not perform as well.
Right.
So is it worth it to look a certain way, but not be able to put out the energy and perform? I don't think so.
Right.
So, and you're not going to make it long enough to be a world champion if
I was going to
that's
say it's
what
the
you do.
sustainability of that lifestyle that I think you and I, and what we talk about a lot in this community that we've discussed
Mm-hmm.
is a lot of people are getting to a point, a lot of our dancers, where it's just not sustainable to do what they're doing anymore. And
Exactly.
unfortunately, because there are no answers for that aspect of it, whether it be physical,
Mm-hmm.
mental, or even
Yep.
financial, right? That we have
Yeah.
so many different categories to what is sustainable and what can be sustained. And that is why I think this is more important now than it ever was before.
Yeah.
Because again, like you said, we've got Google, we've got the internet, we've got all these things and resources available to us, but that is so overwhelming to dive deep into all of these,
Mm-hmm.
research and studies that we don't know what's as accurate as it can be. And also we don't know
Right.
what's going to work for us.
Right.
Everyone's different. So when you go searching for, the most natural deodorant, or you go searching for, a proper nutrition plan for X, Y, and Z, it's like you're not sure you're going to get back. And
Right.
now you have to do like this whole trial and error versus working with
Mm-hmm.
someone like you who can really
Mm-hmm.
like bring them through your process and check
Exactly.
off all of these things to be able
Mm-hmm.
to help them achieve the goal that they're looking for. You can really customize a
Right.
program.
Exactly. And that's, if I'm working with a high level professional, that nutrition plan might be more strict because we
Mm-hmm.
have a goal. We have something, it's like to reach this goal. Maybe I don't have pizza on Friday nights, whereas if I'm a pro-am dancer, maybe there's more flexibility for that. And
Right.
so, finding those balances of what's good for each individual and knowing that sometimes we're going to be a little more tactical and strict,
Right.
but knowing that that's not necessarily the way to think for lifelong. It's the
Mm-hmm.
way to think to get to a goal, and then we would shift for lifelong and lifestyle maintenance.
Right. It's a
So,
season.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. So, those are things that I think are important too. And even knowing, for example, if I'm at an after party, right? I I feel as a professional competitor, it is okay to eat some of those foods. But do we want to go and binge eat them because we hadn't eaten all day and now we're starving
Right.
after putting all that adrenaline out there and on the floor? No. So it's finding what that good balance is. If I am going to drink alcohol, for example, can I just have one drink? And
Mm.
can I just have a piece of pizza and, some of the snacks on the side because I ate a good dinner before I danced that fueled my body appropriately for my dancing? I think all of
Yes.
those things are things that we need to keep in mind, and how to balance pre-dancing, during dancing, post-dancing, training, vacations. How do we train and adjust our nutrition in all those different scenarios, because they are all going to look different.
Yes. I love what you said too, because I think that's very controversial in our
Mhm.
dance community is do I eat before I perform?
Mhm.
Because so many people, if they do a show, they do a competition, they're like, oh no, like I'm gonna
Mhm.
wait, or I'm just gonna eat enough to fuel myself to get through the competition. Because a lot of it,
Mhm.
especially show stuff, people get
Mhm.
nervous. They're like, I don't want to be
Yeah.
sick, I don't want to over
Right.
stuff myself.
Mhm.
But you still need that fuel because you need that power. So
Right.
what would you say? What's your professional recommendation on
Mhm.
do I eat before I perform?
I it's going to be lighter than you probably
Yeah.
would at a normal meal because yeah, you don't want to feel heavy, you don't want to feel bloated, you don't want to feel weighed down.
Mhm.
If especially if you're someone that gets a queasy stomach, that can be a little tricky. But know the foods that are safe foods for your body in those
I call them
environments.
neutral foods. Yes, let's talk about the
Neutral
neutral
foods.
foods. What should we eat before we
Yes.
perform? Better question. Not should you eat.
Yes.
You should eat, but what should you
Mhm.
eat?
Yeah, so it's different for everyone what that might look like because some foods might be more bloating for someone, some foods might
Sure.
be more neutral, but I always say vegetables, don't worry about those before you
Okay.
compete. Which a lot of the time people are like, "Oh, I'm going to have a salad because that's light." But that's
Ah,
loaded with fiber, and now you're trying to digest all that fiber and you're bloated and you didn't get the nutrition you were looking for to fuel your
right.
body. So for me, generally, I want to see like a nice clean starch. So, for example, like some rice or some potatoes that aren't totally soaked in oil,
Mhm.
like lower fat starch that's easy to eat, easy to digest, not super high fiber. Even if you want to do some pasta, sometimes pasta can be good for some people, and then a protein with it.
Right. I was going to say the
So
protein's the crucial part.
yeah, so the protein is going to keep you feeling satiated. The starch is going to give you that like load of energy.
Hmm.
So what we're looking at, like for me, sushi is like perfect
Yes.
pre-comp
Now you're
meals.
speaking my language, girl.
Exactly. So for me, like a nice and not like the deep fried
No, 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 no.
fancy
The
rolls,
yes,
like like salmon roll,
yes.
tuna roll, like keep it simple.
Because it has
Those
the
that
fish, but it also has the rice you were talking about.
exactly. So it has that good balance. Now be careful with sushi because it is raw fish and if you're in the middle of Iowa for a competition, the quality might not be very good and you don't want to give yourself
Right.
any food poisoning. So
Totally.
if I'm in that type of a scenario, then I'm like, I might order from maybe a more Mediterranean style place where I can get some chicken and I can get a rice dish. Some people might do like if they're dancing earlier in the day, maybe some toast and some eggs. That can be a really solid baseline balance, especially if bread digests well for you.
Yeah.
um like those are some simple easy options. You can get some pasta and some grilled chicken
Yes. The grilled
and
chicken. That's where it's at.
exactly
Always a good safe option. Uh,
exactly so go ahead.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. So, yeah, so basically looking at that starch, like a nice plain starch, a nice protein, not too much fat mixed in there because that's going to be like that heavy, slow digestion feeling, and
Hmm.
not too much in the way of veggies because that's also a lot of fiber, which is a lot to digest. So, keeping it
Right.
to a starch and a protein, and then you can have all the veggies you want after you're done dancing.
Nice. Love that. So as they say, I guess,
Mhm.
America runs on Dunkin' and Starbucks.
Yep.
Every time a dancer comes into a new hotel for a competition, they're like, "Where's the coffee shop?"
Hmm.
What is your take on the ever-growing popularity of coffee
Hmm.
in general, first thing in the
Hmm.
morning? Teachers are getting it for their students, for their partners. I personally am not a coffee drinker. I don't personally like coffee.
Yep.
Um, and to get myself going, I've never gotten that buzz or I guess whatever that
Yeah.
jump start from it. So it didn't really do anything. Um,
Hmm.
but then you have people who do energy drinks and stuff, which I think is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But when it comes to coffee, are you for it? Are you against it? Are you for it in moderation? Does it
Mhm.
have any benefits to the performance aspect at all?
Especially in the pro-am realm, when we're starting to dance sometimes at 7 a.m. and we woke up at 4 to get hair and makeup done, and
Yes.
we're not getting adequate sleep. We are not in a healthy sleep cycle by any means at competitions for many of us.
Right.
Um, you know, Coffee can be helpful, but you have to be smart about it.
Mm.
So, if you're on a day-to-day basis a coffee drinker where you have 1 cup in the morning and then you go to a competition and you have 3 cups of coffee, you're going to be jittery. You're not going to be able to put the power into your day like you want to. You're going to not, you're going to be kind of bouncing around
Right.
versus I don't like to do anything totally new or different when I'm at an event, if that makes sense.
Ooh,
So
that's
for
a good tip
me,
overall, though. Don't try new
yes,
stuff. It's like don't try on new
no,
shoes at a comp. Do it, but in the practice, new dresses, new
exactly.
choreographies. Yeah, so it's the same thing with this.
The same thing with food, same thing with coffee. If on a day-to-day basis you're not drinking a ton of coffee, don't show up at a competition and start to drink a ton of
Mm,
coffee. If you drink a cup a day or 2 cups a day at home, don't not drink anything at a competition, because then your body is going to be like, you might have that kind of coffee pullback where your body is like, oh my gosh, I need caffeine, I have a headache, all of those.
withdrawal, yes.
Exactly. So coffee can have some benefits, but we also need to keep in mind not all coffee is created equal. Um,
Mm.
if you have coffee with your sugar, it's going to look a little bit different than if you're
Right.
having a cup of coffee with a splash of creamer and maybe a little bit of sugar. So, especially with Starbucks,
Mm.
Dunkin', all these options that are out there, a lot of the time we get these fancy coffee drinks, and that can also be not so great in our system.
So a lot of
I,
sugar and a lot of additives.
exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And sometimes a lot of fat too, which can just not make our body feel comfortable. Now, coffee is also very acidic.
Mm.
So if we are going to have coffee before we dance, generally I recommend, again, also making sure you have some food in your system, because otherwise you might get a little bit of that heartburn. You might not feel as good if you
Right.
go and you bounce around after a cup of coffee and you don't have any sort of food to balance and stabilize that out. So that's just another note if you're going to have coffee. Tea can also be a really great option, especially if you need, like, a caffeinated tea can be great in the morning at a competition. It can feel a little less intense on your system.
Yeah. Good
Again,
alternative.
exactly. Try it outside of the competition world
Yeah.
first to see how you feel if you're not a big tea drinker. But for me, generally, when I'm at a competition, tea is something that I find feels good to my body when I'm dancing. It keeps me warm in those freezing cold ballrooms, and it gives
Yes.
me that little bit of energy without it being like this, like, crazy caffeine kick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I always say in my wellness
Mhm.
and coaching is when it comes to, because I don't focus on nutrition, but obviously
Right.
that is important being that I come,
Absolutely.
from the athletic world. So what I do for myself, I
Mhm.
always try to help my clients with as well. But my overview is if, especially if you're in a ballroom or you're
Mhm.
doing things and you're active, you're in the middle of
Mhm.
you're in the thick of it basically,
Mhm.
is if something doesn't feel right, or if you're trying
Mhm.
to gain some energy before the competition, or
Mhm.
you're just trying to figure out like why you feel off. My first three things I go to is sleep, water,
Mhm.
and food, or
Yes.
some kind of a protein source. Um,
Absolutely.
how crucial do you feel are those three components to, obviously, like you said, we don't get a lot of sleep when we're in a
Right.
competition because we're
Mhm.
getting up early for hair and makeup. We just
Right.
probably flew in the night before. We're jet lagged. We're on a different time zone.
Mhm.
And then water is very important just because
Very.
we're in different climates. So you could be in a more humid
Mhm.
climate, in a more dry climate. altitude
Definitely.
changes, that kind of thing, especially if you go internationally.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like these three things can help in that aspect, but also like what to focus on, I guess, first? Do you
Yeah,
agree with that? Is that something that matches with what you tell clients as well?
absolutely. So, it can be tempting to go catch up with your friends, do all of these things. Maybe not those of us who are at that fighting for the championship level role, but
Right.
maybe a step down from that as pros. Let's go grab a drink. Let's do this. Let's do that. If you're trying to perform at your best,
Hmm.
leave that till after the dancing.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting a good night's sleep because even if you don't have pro-am in the morning,
Mm.
if you're going to bed at 3, 4 a.m. and waking up at noon, your body's going to feel off. Try to kind of have a good routine where you're like, okay, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to get my normal good quality night's sleep. And then I'm going to wake up and I'm going to take it easy and have a routine that goes through your day. Or if you're a pro-am teacher and you're also competing pro, have a routine that I'm going to get the best sleep I can. And
Yeah.
even if that's not great, then I'm going to make sure, like you said, even if I'm going to have that cup of coffee, I also have a big old water bottle with me. And I have
Yes.
my electrolyte packets over here too for when I'm dripping sweat throughout the day. So that
Yes.
hydration is going to be important. Even if you do drink the coffee, the water should be priority. The coffee is just a secondary.
Right.
Um, and then on top of that, then the food again, also important. Even if it means you just have to eat a protein bar before you get going because you're starting early and that's all you can tolerate, then that's fine. But get something that has that protein and that starch in it and use those things as your primary to get yourself going and energized and get in your mental zone, whether you have to put your headphones in and just focus, whether it's something where you have to walk around,
Right.
pace a little bit, stretch, breathe.
Hmm.
All of those things are really important. Like coming to that place of, and I'm sure this is something you probably talk with people on your end, Christine, where, sitting and figuring out where am I right now?
Oh,
And kind of
yes.
setting like, okay, this is where I am, this is my goals, this is my intention, and this
Yep.
is what I'm trying to do today. And what is going to help me reach that goal today?
Hmm.
What am I going to do with my food? What am I going to do with my body in terms of stretching, sleeping, warming up,
Hmm.
relaxing?
Yep.
All of those components, kind of game planning and just kind of finding where you are and finding what is going to serve the goal that you're trying to achieve for the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. I formulate it in the sense of like your core values. Basically, what are your core
Yes.
values? And a lot of people in our industry, it's, winning that championship or achieving
Mm-hmm.
that goal. And by doing that, anything that doesn't support the core values, whether that be
Mm-hmm.
your nutrition, your mental health level, maybe
Mm-hmm.
skipping a comp because this one, is going to be too much for you or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, those are, I agree, making intentional choices, not just making a choice because a coach told you something,
Mm-hmm.
or you feel guilty if you don't go, or,
Right.
different things like that. It's really making those intentional choices that support your goals and your core values in that moment. Um, my last thing I want to just discuss real quick is
Yeah.
it's not a real quick situation, but I do want to just
Mm-hmm.
get your feedback on it.
Yeah.
Well, because you were talking about protein bars, and
Mm-hmm.
the first thing I think of is, oh, how do you find a clean protein bar? Because I have this app that I
Yeah.
use called Yucca, and
Yeah.
I will scan things, and
Mm-hmm.
basically, for those of you who don't know, it's an app that if you scan something in the grocery store or like even a shampoo or conditioner, it tells you what's in it, and it gives you
Mm-hmm.
a score. The score is not the thing that I really care about out of 100,
Right.
because sometimes they give low scores for something that's like high sodium but has no additives. Basically, what it'll
Right.
show you is if it has anything hazardous in it.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically, a lot of those parabens and things in our shampoos and
Mm-hmm.
conditioners. But when it
Right.
comes to food,
Mm-hmm.
obviously you're eating something like a bag of Doritos. That's not, it's
Right.
bio-generated or bioengineered, whatever they
Yeah.
call it, food. those types of snacks are often found around our,
Mhm.
like you said, after parties,
Right.
ballrooms, things like that.
Yeah.
So how, because that can be really discouraging to be like, well, I just can't find any clean,
Hmm.
healthy, all the produce is sprayed with pesticides. And, the United
Hmm.
States, it's really hard to find good stuff.
Absolutely.
What is your advice on that? And what maybe is
Hmm.
something that you do that helps you to feel confident
Hmm.
with your food selections?
Yeah. So first statement I'm going to make is you have to pick your battles.
Mm,
So, if we try and be perfectly clean with everything, especially in the US, it's not going to happen, and you're going to cause yourself so much stress and anxiety around food that that's going to harm you more than the food is in the
oh,
first place.
yes. Good point.
So that's number one. I don't want people to over worry about, every vegetable, every fruit, every this, every that, because it's nearly impossible unless you're growing all your own food, you're creating all your own meat, you're doing all of this
Right.
perfectly clean. It's just not possible in our society. We can do the best we can. And that's where I say, if you're trying to decide between organic, non-organic, and you're on a financial budget, for example, like fruit or vegetable with a hard outer shell that you're going to take off is probably going to be okay to get non-organic, whereas the stuff that's got the softer shells that is going to be directly exposed to some of these different pesticide sprays, etc., those ones are probably better to go for an organic source.
Right.
Those are some options with those types of choices. If we're looking for protein bars, for example, I first and foremost, I look for what my body feels good with. So sometimes it might have some slightly more processed element to it, but it digests well for me. So that's something I do kind of keep in mind on the side. But there are a lot of bars now that are coming out that are pretty simple, clean ingredients. So, for example, like RX bars, that's a
Mm,
brand that they're just like egg whites, nuts, fruit, and there you go.
right. They
Same with
tell you on the packaging literally what's in it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Lara bars, those types of bars are going to be like your cleanest options where it's just fruits, nuts
Right.
compacted into a bar. Then secondary, then you can look at maybe some of the bars that are a little more processed, like for example, Kind bars or Nugo bars, those types of options, which are okay. They're going to have some more additives,
Right.
some more
Cliff
added sugars.
bars. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
those aren't terrible,
Right.
but you want to look for them to have a good amount of protein, at least 7 grams, if not more.
Mm,
Um, and then having, between 15 to 20 something grams of carb is going to be pretty good in that realm and a little bit of fat. So when I'm looking at the nutrition balance, that's what I'm looking at. I try and avoid the bars that have a bunch of sweeteners and sugar replacements.
right.
Monk fruit can be okay. Some stevia can be okay, but there's a lot of sweeteners that are really digestively not ideal.
Right.
And so those are items that if you eat something with a bunch of inulin, for example, which is one sweetener fiber replacement option, you can have severe GI side effects. And, those are things to keep in mind. So, I'm not someone that is like be perfectly clean with everything. I'm more pick your battles,
Right. Balance is
a
key.
balance is key. An RX bar is going to be better than, a,
A
I don't know, a
cookie.
Twinkie, a cookie or a Twinkie, for example,
But I
right?
want the cookie. No.
But I want the cookie, and sometimes you can make your version of cookies. You can make these like power energy balls where you're mixing
Yes.
like oats and nut butter and some
And
nuts
chocolate
and some
chips.
dried
Yeah.
fruit, maybe
Yeah.
a chocolate chip or two. And now you have your own cookie and it's
There you
actually
go.
healthy and pretty clean.
Yay.
So it's about the balance.
It
Yes,
is.
it's good to find some nice whole food things, but sometimes some of the processing even adds some fortification of nutrients that is not seen in our food as much because of our soil and because of ways things are grown. So processing is not inherently bad. It's over processing with a bunch of extra chemicals that your body can't recognize that can be more of the detriment.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And I love what you said about not being perfect because that's the whole point. That's why I started the Recovering Perfectionist podcast. I definitely
Yes.
grew up in the ballroom world, highly cultivating my perfectionism. And that
Mhm.
was
Yes.
in the real world, that's just not how it goes. Sometimes you have to eat the cake, but at the same time,
Exactly.
again, in moderation, because you don't want to deprive
Right.
yourself, or as we
Right.
say, we were saying before, sacrificing yourself for success, just push, push, push
Exactly.
all the time. There needs to be that healthy balance. So that is
Right.
exactly what we are preaching here. No, I don't want to say
Hmm.
preaching, but what we are supporting here, not
Yes.
just on this podcast, but also with the dance wellness community. So I'm so excited for
Exactly.
you guys to be able to work one-on-one with Ricci. She is the featured practitioner for the July newsletter. So if you are not signed up for our newsletter, please do so in the link. We'll put everything in the description of this episode. And every month we have a newsletter that comes out and we have a feature practitioner. And so you'll be able to see more about what Ricci does and who she helps and all of that as well. And then links to all of her social media, as well as if you want to book a consultation with her and move
Mhm.
forward. If this resonates with you, that's why we want to do this, is really introduce all of these different aspects of wellness with all
Right.
of these. We have different practitioners and everyone specializes in something completely different, but it's all part of the wellness circle. And so it's very, very important to understand that it's not, everything's not a one size fits all. And you need
Mhm.
to have balance of your physical, mental, financial, all of that to be a well-rounded, not just individual, but specifically when you were talking about high level athletics
Mhm.
or high achievers. We talk a lot
Mhm.
about high achievers in what I do. And it you can achieve at a high level and still have a balanced life. That is
Yes.
the new way that we believe can be done to succeed. It's not the hustle culture survival mode way anymore for
Mhm.
success. And Ricci is proudly demonstrating that can be done, not just with her coaching, but also as a professional
Mhm.
dancer as well, because she competes as well. And so
Mhm.
she is firsthand experiencing and applying what she is coaching and giving people advice on. So that is incredible. And that's another thing is most of our practitioners, I would say, if not all of them, have had some level of competition or been the athlete themselves. And they have
Right.
had these same issues, and now they are helping to, we're not gatekeeping this information anymore.
Yep. Exactly. We're here to support, and
That's right.
we've been through it, and that's
Yes,
why, with the knowledge outside of our dance world, being able to provide that knowledge and combining it with our experiences as dancers, as professional competitors on my end, using all those things together to make sure everyone feels like they can find that balance is so important.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat and to share with our audience in both the Recovering Perfectionist podcast and Dance Wellness community everything that you do and provide. I just want to say thank you from me personally, because I'm so honored to have you as a part of this community, because I think you're going to help so many people. And your platform's going to grow so extensively because it's very, very needed. This is the core, the
Mhm.
nutrition. If we can't fuel ourselves, like you said, to perform well, even if it's just moving through life, but
Right?
specifically with these high performance goals that everyone has. this is where it starts, ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. And thank you so much for having me as a part of this. It's something I'm super passionate about. So
Yes.
I'm so glad to be partnered with you and the other professionals in this group.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Well, like I said, if you guys have any questions, go to dancewellnesscommunity.com, sign up for the newsletter. You can see Ricky in the July issue, and we're very excited to get this thing going. If you guys have anything else that you want, comments, concerns, all of that, please join us on social media, and we will see you next time with another practitioner.
The secret is out and wow.